The intended use of this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guests independently, and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Updog Challenge Incorporated, its sponsors, or any other partnered organizations. Updog Challenge Incorporated does not guarantee the accuracy or reliability of any opinions expressed. In no way should the information provided during the Sweet Spot, an Updog podcast be considered veterinary, medical, legal, or professional advice. At all times, the advice of your personal professional should supersede any information provided, derived, or inferred from listening to this podcast.
Ready, set, go.
Welcome to the Sweet Spot, an Updog podcast. I'm Andrea.
And I am Jack. We are your hosts today. We have no guest today and no plan.
Nope. So today actually came from a comment that we had on the Updog discussion page, or a question someone posed on the Updog discussion page about whether there was or wasn't an advantage to lefty players. And since of the team members that we have on Updog, I'm the only lefty. So I am our official lefty representative. And so we wanted to have a conversation today about that question. Do we consider advantages or disadvantages to lefty players? Is anyone asking those questions? And in the actual games themselves, what solutions do we have for how right-handed people may play it versus how left-handed people should play it? Is that a good summary, Jack?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I was Johnny come lately on the post because I didn't see it until like yesterday. Did it just, has it been going for a while?
No, it's just a couple days ago.
Oh, okay. Well, when I saw it, it had a bunch of comments. That's all I knew. And Kat had been talking to me about it, so she had seen it. And so, like Dre said, she definitely advocates for lefties when we have conversations about games and, you know, what we should, what accommodations, if any, should we make, like we do in Greedy, where you can go clockwise or counterclockwise around. We also have locally in Florida a player in our local club that's a lefty, and whenever we're doing beta testing, he is definitely one to speak up and let us know if he feels like there's a disadvantage. However, I don't think he speaks up when there is an advantage.
Hey, we already have to cut scissors with our right hands, okay? If we have an advantage here or there, let's just give it to us. It's like trying to write with your left hand as a righty. There's a lot in this world that does not accommodate left-handed people. So, getting into that conversation, the question I think was specifically around Fireball. And it was around the patterns for Fireball and whether or not there was an advantage or a disadvantage for lefty players. So the first part of the conversation that we had was, yes, anytime that we're beta testing or discussing gameplay for a new game, you have somebody local in your club that'll test for lefty stuff. And then I'm always considering, you know, the patterns of the strategic patterns of the game to make sure that they don't heavily favor righty or lefty, because it could be either way, right? I think when we originally had this conversation with Boom, I did question Boom, and when we went through it, it turned out that it was actually a slight advantage lefty, and I don't remember what the details were, but I was like, okay, we could just leave it. I was okay with a slight lefty advantage.
Yeah, and I think you really have to, in any of the Updog games, there's multiple strategies for success, and so many times the strategy that perhaps a left-handed person might see first is a right-handed strategy because the majority of people are right-handed. I did a quick Google search and they said approximately 10% of the population is left-handed. So, you know, if you show up at an event and watch 5 teams go, it's probably going to be right-handed people and they're probably going to set up in a right-handed strategy. But that doesn't mean you have to follow that strategy. Like, you can figure it out and set up in a lefty strategy, and that strategy may actually have more of an advantage than the right-handed strategy. It's just different, right?
Yeah, and that's where we get into the meat of this conversation that I was excited to talk to you about today is, okay, what's a lefty strategy? Like, what's the difference between what a righty would do and the lefty would do, and why is it even a conversation in disc? Like, why does it matter what hand you throw with, right? And so now we're getting to the nitty gritty. Here's the real reason why there is a difference between if you throw with your right hand or you throw with your left hand. Jack, what would you say as a player that has, 20 plus 25 maybe years of experience in this sport? What's the difference between being a lefty and a righty? If you're just playing zone play, we're not talking freestyle, we're just talking zone play.
So I think, I mean, to me, there's two big things that account for your dog making a catch or not making a catch. And that could be the way in which the disc is flying through the air
Mhm.
and the amount of opportunity that the dog had to see that disc and make a plan for catching that disc and getting to that disc.
Yeah, I would agree with
So
both.
like those two things are big, right? And
Mhm.
and I think being a lefty or a righty can impact both of those things depending upon the game and depending upon where you're standing in the game.
Right.
Um, I'll let me. Can I start with which one you want to start with?
With
The
what? Um,
like
um,
the flight of the disc,
let's start
or
with the flight of the disc and then the seeing of the disc.
okay. So I think the flight of the disc. You talked about this with me earlier. This is what we were starting to have a conversation about, and then we're like, wait, let's just stop and
Let's
record this
record
for a
this.
podcast. But obviously, when you are a righty versus a lefty and you're throwing a backhand, when you're playing up dog games, most of the time people are throwing backhands
Mhm.
because that's their kind of default throw, right?
Even if we try to make them throw alternate throws with games like Boom, which is probably why everybody hates Boom. Not everybody, but a lot of people don't like Boom. It's because it's really designed to like encourage you to throw alternate spin, right? So that's one of the games that really exacerbates this concept.
So if you're throwing mainly with backhands, which I'll say I do too, I throw mainly with backhands when I'm not playing freestyle, right? Um, your disc is going to fade differently. Did I say it right?
Oh, you said it right.
Fade
Right to left.
differently if I'm a right-handed thrower or a left-hand thrower. If I'm throwing a right-handed backhand, right, and so I've got that disc angled and I throw it with some hyzer, it's going to fade to the left. Okay,
Mhm.
and as it fades to the left,
Which way is it spinning? The
so
disc.
it's spinning clockwise
Mhm.
as a backhand, right? And as it fades, it's going to fade to the left like this. And so it's going to have an angle like this. So if my dog is on this side coming in to get the disc, depending on how much of an angle I've got, the dog's coming in to try to catch it. Hello. Then I don't know why I said that. It looked like a finger puppet or something. Like, I don't know. It's weird.
I think that should be the opening clip for the podcast. Hello.
So the dog's coming to get it, right? And possibly going to make a bead on it like this.
Yeah.
Okay. But if it's got a lot of angle and it's coming down hard, the dog's going to have a hard time getting up underneath it. If it was coming in like this instead, the dog's going to have to leap up and kind of get above it. So that angle of the disc as the disc is fading, and depending upon where the dog is coming in to grab it, is really going to impact whether or not that dog catches. And
Yeah.
as a lefty, it's going to be whatever I just demonstrated there from this angle with the disc fading in like this is going to be different because Dre, when you throw, what kind of spin do you have?
Clockwise. So it's going to go from left to right.
Right. So
It's gonna
now,
be-
hello. Now I'm over here.
My dog needs to be on the other side. Now, the funny thing about that is if we look at Jack's screen and we look at my screen, both of our discs were coming in at the same angle, but he was using his right hand and I was using my left hand. So if that's not completely confusing, then it looks the same. It looks the same way on this screen, right? But I'm using my right hand. So the disc is kind of coming in at the same angle and the dog is coming in at the same angle, right? But I'm throwing with my left hand, he's throwing with his right hand. His disc is going to fade to the left, mine's going to fade to the right. So why do you even care which way your disc fades? Because if your disc is fading like away from where you're a couple different things. if we're not even playing disc play, let's just say you're just zone play. Like it doesn't matter where your dog catches it, they could catch it anywhere on the field. So let's say your dog can catch it anywhere on the field, and it's a win, right? That's like it's your out throw for agility, no out of bounds, right? As long as the dog catches it. So as your disc is coming in, if your dog is on this side of the disc, so we'll go left. We should probably give a righty example because 90% of people are righty. So if we give a righty example, the disc is coming in and it's going to fade right to left, right? If your dog is on the right-hand side of you, they're going to be running here. This disc is going to be going this way. So your dog has to turn towards the disc and then like chase after the disc as it flies away from them. And your dog has two options. One, they can either, like Jack had given as an example, jump over the top of the edge of the disc, which some of our dogs can do. The dogs that jump, that have nice leaping and collection ability, can make that jump. And they can do it with a lot of style and it'll look great. And you'll think, like, that's just a fine throw. But like maybe 80% of dogs can't catch that. They're going to instead come in, try to make that jump based on their speed or their athleticism or whatever. They can't do that. They're going to get it here. And so that's when you're going to see your disc fly across like that and they bonk it and you're like, why isn't my dog catching the disc? It was right in front of their face. If it's fading away, it creates pursuit. So you're instead of your dog rocking back and collecting and giving a nice pop, they're running forward. So they're more likely to be in between stride when they're trying to catch. And it requires this like pretty ridiculous athleticism if you've got a big angle on that disc for them to actually do it. And that's harder when they're running. So you're making it a lot harder for your dog to actually catch the disc if you're throwing on the side that the disc is fading away from. So if you're a righty and you're throwing this way and your dog's on this side of the disc, that's going to be a lot harder for them to catch than if your dog's on this side of the disc and the disc is fading towards the dog. So the easiest solution to that would just be to throw on the correct side of the disc instead of worrying about what spin you're throwing, because most of us are throwing backhand spin, which is what Jack and I both demonstrated.
And when your dog is cutting in from the side on a disc as opposed to a pursuit mode, right? If the disc is heading down the field and your dog's catching it from behind, that's what we mean by pursuit mode. That's a much easier calculation for the dog to make than what we've just been describing. So, this angle that we're kind of sharing is kind of extreme, right? That's a pretty extreme angle for your disc to be fading down at. So really, one of the things as a righty or a lefty that you want to practice is thinking about throwing to those zones and making it so that this disc is not coming in at any type of extreme angle like this, because I don't want my dog to have to try to get up underneath this disc at a weird angle or come at it from the top or whatever. Like Dre said, they're probably going to be hitting it on the faceplate and knocking it away, and it's not going to be a catch. So if instead of an extreme angle like that, I can flatten this out to be a little bit more like that, that makes it a whole lot more catchable from either angle, from the dog approaching from this side or this side. So be watching how you're throwing to the zones, practice that throw, and see if you can't flatten that angle out a little bit. That'll help from whether or not you're throwing lefty or righty.
Yeah. And so now we look at the second element of this. Now what we were just discussing is playing in an open field, right? So like any catch counts. But now if we talk about throwing specifically inside of a zone, we have a whole new set of problems. One, dogs that jump versus dogs that don't jump. So dogs that jump are going to be a lot harder to get in the zone accurately because there's less forgiveness for them dragging a toe. Like the dogs that don't jump very well or don't have that really big pop, they're more likely to drag their toe across the line in the zone when they catch, and that's going to be a catch inside the zone. But a dog that pops, a lot of times they'll jump right out of the zone. So now if we go to, this is a little bit of a higher level conversation than the last one. The last one's like you can catch anywhere and just make it easy for the dog to catch. Now we're talking about how do we get the dog to catch in one of these specific zones right here. And these zones are only 5 by 5, like 5 by 10. They're 5 yards, and this is a 10-yard width. So most of the zones that we're aiming for here are these little side zones, the smaller ones. So if we're aiming for a smaller zone, how do we get a leaping dog or a fast dog or everything timed right so the dog actually lands in the zone when they're trying to make one of these catches? So what are some techniques that you would do? And then I'll give you some ideas of stuff that I would do to help the zone catch actually happen inside the zone. And let's just take into account that every dog's going to jump because we're going to say the dogs that don't jump, they're not going to have this much of a problem. They're going to drag their toe across the line a lot more. So you're going to have a lot more forgiveness getting it in the zone for a dog that doesn't leap as much. But those popping dogs, those dogs that jump really well, they're going to be doing a lot of jumping out of the zone.
So one of the things that I do is I throw a lot of Anheuser throws to my dog
Yeah. Show us
because
what is it?
what's that?
What does Anheuser look like?
So an Anheuser throw, if I'm throwing backhand, most of the time it's going to be hyzered, right? It's going to be wing down like this. I'm going to throw it out like that. But an Anheuser throw, I'm actually going to release it with there. I guess you can see it there. I'm going to release it with the wing up. Okay, so the wing is higher than my hand. The wing of the disc is higher than my hand. This is a little extreme just to show you the angle. I might just release it about like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And you can play around with it because you get different effects the more Anheuser you put on it. But what happens is when you put that Anheuser on it, you can kind of have like a lazy floater toss. It heads out like this, so it heads out like that, right? And it goes
It still
out,
has
and
its
then
normal
about
fade.
what's
Yeah.
that?
It still has the normal, like it's still spinning clockwise. You're still
Yeah,
throwing with
it's
your right hand, so it's still going to fade the same direction, but you're throwing against the fade right now.
right. So it starts out kind of heading this way. It starts out kind of going to the right, like it's fading to the right. But about halfway out, it kind of flattens out like this, and it does kind of like an S curve like this, and then floats back down, and it's got less speed. So a dog that's like wanting to go into pursuit mode, um, it's it's going to hover more than a regular backhand runner throw that I'm throwing for like throw and go or something like that. It's gonna come out and it's gonna turn and then it's gonna float right into the zone.
Yeah.
What that does for my dogs that I've found is it slows them down because they're like, "Whoa, that's flying weird. I got to do more calculations in my head as to where this might land." And it gives dogs that are coming in from the left or the right an opportunity to make that grab when the disc is not at some sort of extreme angle cutting down left or right.
Yeah.
The other thing that an anhyzer is really nice for too is if my dog's not coming in from like let's say they're here and I missed this or I need to throw back to this zone and I want to throw to my dog like right at my dog, not like right at its teeth, but like I want to throw maybe just a little bit to the side of its head, but I want to throw into the zone that my dog's in. That nice little floater again, the dog's going to sit there and they'll kind of watch it versus it coming right at their face. And it slows down and it gives them multiple opportunities to make that grab. So
Yeah.
instead of a split second opportunity with a fast backhand, hyzered throw, they have multiple opportunities to kind of like make a grab for that disc. So
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Anheuser's.
The slowness there is such an important detail that you mentioned, and you are the king of the Anheuser throw. And I'm reminded last time I was just there in Florida, we were working over some stuff. We were talking about this exact similar conversation, right? And you were like, "We'll just throw Anheuser," and it never even occurred to me. Never. Never even occurred to me to throw Anheuser. Because I'm such a freestyle minded person. I'm thinking, what special throws go in this spot that can handle the wind condition? Like, that's my mental prep when I'm thinking of what throw to throw. I'm not thinking gameplay, everything is backhand, right? And we can make modifications. I'm thinking specialty throws that have to be trained a certain amount of time in certain wind conditions. So I didn't even consider being able to use Anheuser. So another way to kind of picture how Anheuser can be used also, it masks a lefty throw. So it's sort of like that Anheuser. So this is righty hyzer. This is Anheuser, right? So this is the Anheuser. That's the same thing as a lefty hyzer. So
Right.
here's your hyzer. This is Anheuser for lefty. Here's your Anheuser for righty. It's hyzer for lefty. So when you put Anheuser on that righty throw, you're making a lefty throw happen. But because the disc is still spinning clockwise, righty, it's still going to come back to the regular fade. So that's what he's saying here. And what that creates is that throw. You can't throw that throw fast. You know what happens when you try to throw Anheuser fast? What happened when you started throwing frisbee? It goes straight off to the right. It hooks off into some roller, right? So we're actually asking you to come back to the throw that we asked you to stop doing when you first started throwing and you were throwing Anheuser by accident and add all this hyzer. Now we're saying, okay, now that you can throw with hyzer, we want you to put Anheuser back in. And so now you can start to play with the fade of the disc and it's going to slow down that throw, which Jack had alluded to, which keeps the dog tracking instead of running. The dog, instead of running in pursuit, they're making adjustments. And that's one of the biggest tips that I got from Jack when we did Game Changers 2 years ago. I was struggling with having free bird catch because she's a pursuit dog, right? And you were just like, just throw off her line. And that made all the difference in the world, just throwing off so if the dog is running this line, just throw slightly off that line. It makes them think and adjust their direction rather than just running, right? And so this is that Anheuser thing totally hits that right in the middle of the target. That adjustment and the floating of the disc in this S shape gets the dog's attention in a different way, and they stop running and they start collecting in pursuit. And that just makes a big difference in the catching ability, I think. That's a really good tip.
Well, thank you, first of all. And the the thing that you mentioned there too, I think is important when you guys go out and try to throw this throw. It is not the throw that you made when you were probably first starting, because when you did that, it was probably a fast backhand. You were probably
Yeah.
trying to get it out there. And like Dre said, this is a slower motion, and I always call it a lazy Anheuser. When Ron was staying with me, that's what he was watching me throw it, and that's what he called it. And he's like, "You just look like you're just not like it's not even you're not
Yeah.
even doing it on purpose. It looks like that was just a bad throw, but then once it does its S curve thing and it lands where it does, you realize, oh, that was on purpose.
Right.
So it's a lazy throw. It's almost like a lob toss too, because you're releasing it with kind of an upward motion. So it's going above a little bit high, starting out a little bit higher than what your what your hyzer throw would start out at. Every time I do this in the camera, I gotta adjust. But anyway, it's a little bit of like a lazy kind of throw. And I know some of this stuff is abstract, especially if you're in your car just listening and you've got no
Video.
visual of what's happening. Check out the visual on your
YouTube.
platform. Definitely that'll help. And also, I will definitely go out and take some just
Video.
a couple videos of me throwing Anheuser and post that somewhere that you guys can see. I'll post it in the comments or something like that. Because I know this is sometimes it can be abstract if you don't have the visual.
Yeah. Okay, so my strategy is different because I never even thought about Anheuser until Jack mentioned it. So I had a different strategy because I didn't think of his strategy. So my strategy is to use the pressure of the disc to keep the dog in the zone. So I spend a lot of times teaching my dogs for collected leaping because I primarily play freestyle. So like a dog leaping with its feet off the ground is really important to me for dog catches and overs and all that. So I spend a ton of time when my dogs are developing, working on that leaping skill, which is very counterproductive for zone play because my dogs
Right.
jump out of the zone a lot, right? I'm not sorry that my dogs leap well or that I spent that much time doing it, but I have to have a different strategy to account for that when I play in zone play, especially in games like Greedy. Like I love Greedy. It's other than freestyle, it's my favorite up dog game and far out. Freestyle and far out are my favorites. But aside from that, Greedy, right? And it's probably because it shows what freestyle motion's like. I love it because you have to take an action and then move to a new part of the field, and then take an action, move to a new part of the field. So I love the dynamic movement of it, right? And you kind of have to just set your stuff out there and fly to the next spot. You can't sit there and wait for the dog to see if, place everything perfectly. It's like a get and run kind of thing. So what I'll do is I'll use the fade of the disc for that whole pattern. As a lefty, I'm going to be opposite, right? I'm going to start on the left-hand side and move to the right-hand side of the field because my disc fades counterclockwise spin, fades left to right, right? So when I'm looking at the field, I'm going to stand on the left-hand side of the field where a righty might stand all the way to the right-hand side of the field because their disc is going to move to the left, right? So for Greedy as a righty, if you started on this side, well, actually, we would start on this side. If we started on this side, you're probably going to hit these three zones here in that direction, where I, as a lefty, would stand on this side and I would hit this zone, and then hit this on the way back. because the fade of the disc going to the side. Now, if I'm going to send all three of these discs at the same time, which is what I would do for greedy, because I want to just see how many I'll catch and then move to the next zone, I'd send this one first, this one right away, and then this one would be higher hyzer. Okay. So when I throw that right disc, because I need it to come back and I don't want the dog is going to be blasting across the three because I'm throwing one, two, three in a row. So they're not coming back in, going back out. It's not a pursuit throw. They're crossing interception. So I'm throwing here. The dog is going to go out pursuit for this one, right? So dog goes out, boop, gets that one. Now my dog's in this position and I got to throw here. That's perfect interception. All I have to do is throw a straight one right down here. But for this one, they're running that one. I want to get this one out so that I can like throw my roller and move. So for this one, I'm gonna send the dog around. I'm gonna send the disc here. But the fade of the disc is gonna push it here. And remember how Jack said that hyzer, if it's coming down to the dog, they're not gonna want to move towards it? Exactly. If a disc is coming down towards the dog and they're coming across here, they can see this as a high disc. So it's like 20 feet in the air. They know they can't catch a 20-foot disc. Anybody who's worked with me on tracking collection drills, this would be an example of the high hyzer drill. So you throw out a high hyzer disc real short, and the dog knows they can't catch 20 feet in the air, so they're not going to pre-jump it. So what do? They wait for the disc to break back. And because you have a lot of hyzer, the disc is breaking back at their face like at a high rate of speed like that. The dog's not going to forge. What are they going to do? They're going to rock back. And when they rock back, you mark collection. And what happens is when a dog rocks back, so this disc is coming back with hard hyzer, the dog's going to come from this run and they're going to put on the brakes because they're going to see this disc coming back hard. And when they put on the brakes, they're no longer forging and running. They're staying. So they're going to stay at this part of the zone. This disc is going to come back hard at the dog, hold them in position, and then the dog is not going to jump out of the zone. If I put a flat disc here, my dog would sail right out of the zone every single time.
Right. Yeah, I love that strategy. I've never actually thought about using that strategy for, especially for greedy, because
Yeah,
I like
I've used it.
I like your pattern. You run a different pattern than I do, and it totally makes sense for that pattern that you can't have that dog jumping out of that zone, like you said.
Yeah. So if you look at even my directional movement for Capiche, she's my fastest dog and she doesn't collect well. She forges all the time. All my directional movement throws for her, except for my first one. So zigzag, just to clarify for everyone, directional movement, we're talking about a zigzag pattern in freestyle where the dog goes back and forth 4 times catching discs, right? It shows that the dog can work at a distance away from you, but it's basically this example, right? That first one, it's easy. Send it out. It's just a pursuit throw. But then I need her to cross that pattern and go back and forth 3 times. So the next 3 throws are all upside down throws with a lot of hyzer. Because in order to keep that pattern, I need a disc coming back to keep her in collection. And then turn around, keep her in collection, turn around, keep her in collection. If I didn't do that, she would forge catch, she would jump at a run, and it would be this figure 8 kind of zigzag that you see a lot, where the dog runs out and outrun. And because they're doing that outrun, they're coming all the way back. And then the dog comes in a little bit on the figure 8. And this is supposed to show distance. And so then you have to throw it back out again, right? So in order to get the dog to stay in a spot, in a specific spot for zone play, I use the pressure of the disc if they're running. So I would use hyzer to pressure them to stop, to rock back and stop, hyzer towards them. And otherwise, if it's in a line or pursuit, then I would do exactly what you were saying. And I would set a flat disc at a slower pace so that it's an interruption to the line they're running and they can collect and pop it in pursuit. But if we need them to stop inside the zone, I usually use the pressure of the disc for that.
All right, so the anhyzer, the high hyzer, like really thinking about the angle of your disc definitely can help you to like strategize like what throw do I throw, and if you're a lefty it is going to be different than if you're a righty. So I think the biggest thing here is if you're a lefty, you need to pay attention to lefties playing.
I was just that thought just happened because righties have like so many examples of strategies they get to see in like live in action. Like we could even say, hey, lefties out there, if you're good at games, can you post a video of you playing each game strategy? Because lefties don't have the same exposure to information that righties have. And not every game, like for agility, all you have to do is start on the other side. Greedy, all you have to do is start on the other side. Like Well, no, I mean, because you might start on the you have to start on the right hand side instead of the left hand side, or the left hand side instead of the right hand side. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's that easy, but other times it's it's got more moving parts than that, more strategy parts. What do you think one of the more challenging lefty righty switch, like the difference between? I don't know the answer to this. If we were to think about our games, which games would be the hardest transfer from lefty to righty? Maybe Fireball, because the points are different on the field. That's the only difference. Is like the other ones, the points are the same for every zone.
So let's talk about Fireball because I think it's a great example too of the second component that we were talking about, which is how long does your dog have to see the disc in flight,
Oh
or
yeah,
even
we have a whole
even
other
to
area.
see even to see like where the disc is going to go. Not necessarily that it's even been released yet, but like I can sort of, as a human, I can telegraph where the Can you hear my dogs?
Not even barely.
Okay,
No.
good.
Yeah, but you're
Well,
talking about the pose, basically. You can like show
right.
the dog where they're going.
So like let's say that I'm playing Fireball and I'm here, right? So if my dog is over here and I'm throwing, they're seeing my back. And my disc is over here. Like my
Yeah.
back and shoulder and everything is covering up my disc. Like they don't see it. All of a sudden it just appears in front of them.
Yep.
So I didn't do a great job of like, can you hear my dogs? Like
Oh.
that's crazy. They're like going nuts because the Terminex guy's here. So in my head, I'm trying to talk, and like all I hear is blah blah blah
Oh.
blah.
Zoom is amazing at blocking out dog
I
barking.
wish Zoom worked in my head too, like and blocked it out. Um, Anyways, so my back's turned like this, right? So anything where my dog's over here cutting across this way is going to be a blind throw.
Yep.
And I want to be able to like let my dog know way ahead of time, like, hey, it's going to be over here, and let him see that throw the whole time. So in the post, I don't know if you saw, the only thing I wrote in the post was I uploaded the GIF or GIF or whatever you call those things of like Ross from Friends holding the couch and yelling
Yeah.
pivot, like as you're going around the corner.
I saw that and I didn't get it. So do you want to translate?
So yeah,
You're translating.
so my dog over there, they can only see my back. I
Yeah.
need to pivot, right? I
Yeah.
need to turn on my left. I'm going to be pivoting on my left if I'm playing Fireball because my left foot's probably in that little corner over there, right?
Mhm.
So I'm going to pivot and face my dog with the disc, and then I'm going to turn and make that throw. So I turn my shoulder, flat work, right? My dog sees my shoulder turn. Oh, we're going this way.
Yep.
And then I make that throw. They know where the throw is going to be. Just like Dre said, it's flat work. It's posing. It's making sure that my throw is not blind to my dog and the disc just somehow appears a second before they're supposed to catch it.
Yeah.
I want to give them 3, 4, 5 seconds of opportunity to figure out where they're going. So like if you're a lefty, it would be the opposite, right? Like this would be no
Oh, I
problem.
was standing on the left-hand side of the field, so move your little dude to the top
Well,
part.
let's say that I'm still here, and my dog's over there. If I'm a lefty throwing backhand, all the
On
throws
that
going
side,
this way,
yeah.
this way, are
Yeah.
totally easy. My
Yeah.
dog would see the disc the whole way, right?
Yeah.
But if we flip it and my dog's over there,
On a
now,
pivot.
yeah. So pivot and show your dog what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I was confused about the fireball field. You're right. We're standing at the corner, so we're not going to be rotating around the field. So yes, the advantage and disadvantage is the same lefty righty. If you just move your body, it's the same. The difference I think between Fireball versus our other games is the point values of the individual boxes are different. So we have the box that we're standing at, and then it goes left and left. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. One, you want to run the numbers in there since you have.
Yeah. So we
So
got let's see, 1, 2, 3,
4,
4,
5,
5,
6, 7,
6,
and 1.
7, 8, right?
So the difference is lefty righty strategy is that your lefty strategy is going to hit the 1, the 3, the 6, and the 8, and the 4 easier than they're going to hit the 2, 5, and 7. And that, in my opinion, is the only difference. So if we look at that, it's actually lefty advantage.
Well, and also it depends
Get
on,
higher scoring zones on the left side first before the right.
and it depends on how you move your dog around the field. Because if my dog's going left to right, a throw might be easier for me, right? Like if my dog caught this one and now I'm trying to get to the 8,
Yep.
as a righty,
It's really hard.
that's a great throw because they can see it the whole way, right? They see my backhand throw the whole way. So cutting
Wait,
from
so give
here,
me give me that example. You're saying that player throwing righty to zone 8, but the dog is in 5?
so the dog's here in 5 and are cutting across to 8, and I'm standing here, right?
I would think that's a lot harder. I would say that's a way easy. It's a way easier lefty throw.
Oh, you're right. Looking at, I had to turn because
Pivot, pivot, Jack.
I was looking at it here as a mirror image. My bad.
Yeah. So perfect example. Perfect example, right? So if the dog is in the 5 and you're a righty and you're throwing your backhand right hand throw, your disc is going to be fading from that 5 zone towards the 7 zone. So as your dog is going to go from the 5 right to the 7 anyway, just on their outrun, you're going to be compressed. So you're going to actually have to throw that 8 throw to the zone past where Jack's head is. Point to the zone right where your face is taken up, Jack. Like this.
This?
That one. Yeah. You're essentially, as a right-handed player, going to be throwing to that zone so that it fades to 8 in order for that dog to catch it off of 5. And that's a hard throw. That's a hyzer throw. That's what I'm saying. You have to get the dog to stay in that zone. Where if you used Anheuser and threw from that same spot, you would essentially throw a straight throw down this line and it would fade. It would do that little S shot up into where this 8 is. So the angle of the disc, the pivot, but the fade of the like we can make things happen with that Anheuser fade of the disc that make it easier to throw on the weak side of your body. So if you're a right-handed player, anytime you're throwing to the left, it's the weak side. If you're a left-handed player, anytime you're throwing to the right hand of your body, that's your weak side. It means you're turning your back to your dog and the disc is going to be fading away from your dog. So those are the opportunities that us updog founders, when we throw games at you, are hoping that you're going to throw alternate spin. You're going to throw a sidearm or an overhand wrist flick. Nobody likes to do that in gameplay. Everybody likes to throw backhand. So if you want to throw backhand to the soft side of your body or the weak side of your body, use Anheuser, is what we're saying with Jack's suggestion. You can throw that little S shot and it's going to interrupt that foraging run that your dog has, and because it's slower, the dog's going to slow down and the disc is still going to come back in the zone that you need it to come back in because you put that S shot on there. The Anheuser.
So to add to what Dre just said, pro tip thinking strategy. Dre has said this before about this game. Part of why we like this game for freestylers is because you have to think on the fly. There's pressure happening. You've got to make adjustments quickly. As soon as the fireball starts, and you don't know when that is, right? So as soon as it starts, I see this very frequently that people just start throwing discs to the highest point zones that are open.
Yep.
The strategy should be, crap, it's fireball time. Where's my dog at? Oh, my dog's here. What
Yeah.
are the highest point zones that I could get my dog to, moving them in a good way, throwing in a good way? Because if I just immediately chuck it to 8 because that's the highest point zone, depending on where my dog's at, if my dog's here, that's not going to be a great throw. It's going to be a hard catch, and I'm probably throwing my discs away and not going to get any points.
You're
If my
tied.
dog was over at 3 when fireball started, I can easily go for 8, right?
8, 7, and 5.
Right.
As a right-handed player, if your dog was in 3, you would have the fate of the disc to throw to 4, 6, 8, 7, and 5, and even 2. Like you'd have, if your dog is on the left-hand side of you as a right-handed player, you have the whole field. If
Yeah.
your dog is on the right-hand side of you as a left-handed player, you have the whole field. So start to think about that. And, the thought that came to me when you saying that, Jack, like, might want to do a little bit of practice or strategy ahead of time, like we do for freestyle, where we have sets and we have plans of throwing discs in certain directions, right? To get everything to move around the field that we want. Same thing with Fireball, because there is this like unknown element of when the music is when the Fireball music is going to kick in, and we have to take this swift action that changes everything, blows it all up, and you got to clean it all up and try and make sense of it after that, right? So if you know that, like, if your dog's on the left, these are the zones, and if your dog's on the right, these are the zones. If you know that before you even play, then when you get out there and that happens, all you have to do is left, okay, I know I have these zones. Right, okay, I have these zones. We don't have enough time in freestyle or in Fireball to determine those accurately. You just don't. You're going to waste your whole time just trying to figure it out. So if we can do some pre-planning, just like you would for freestyle, strategizing what your options are, given
Yeah.
where your dog is when the fireball happens, and this might be my answer to, like, I've only played Fireball twice. I missed the Bike Club version of it here because I was traveling. I was so excited to get to play again, and I'm like, I don't even have a strategy, but like that could be the strategy. Is just like
Yeah.
knowing what formula for what scenario.
If
So
my
that
dog, right, if
yeah,
fireballs happens and my dog is here, what are the possible zones I
yep,
can go for? If my fireball happens and my dog's over here, what are the different possible zones? Because
yep,
I can tell you right now, I have done exactly what I just described. Like the
yeah,
first number of times I played fireball, as soon as fireball happened, I was just chucking discs to like
yep,
the furthest zone because I wanted to get double eight.
yep,
And I didn't end up getting it. I got double zero. I got nothing. So that's the
yeah,
thing, is that like I could have thrown to a lesser point zone but gotten a catch, which is
right.
way better. It's very similar to kind of the mindset that I also see sometimes happening where like in Spaced Out, somebody misses a zone and then they do a really hard, I don't mean hard like a fast throw, but a hard throw to catch, which is throwing at the dog.
That's so
Like,
hard. Yeah.
so the human thinks, well, I missed that zone, I got to get that zone, and so they throw right back to that zone with the dog in the zone. That's a
Mhm.
really hard catch for the dog, and it's a tough throw to make. It
Yeah.
would be way better to just go get another catch in another zone and then come back to that zone, because your dog will be moving laterally and you'll be able to get a better and easier catch. And you'll pick up 5 extra points along the way. Again, how do I know that? Because I screwed
Right.
up a bunch of times doing it myself. And those of you guys that judge, you guys will notice this stuff when you watch. Like if you're watching 100 rounds of Fireball, you're going to start to notice like what strategies
Works and what
work, what
doesn't.
strategies don't. And like you just watching a player and you're like, I'm never doing that. That's a bad strategy. Or wow, look at that strategy. That's a great strategy. I want to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, you brought up a really important point too that I think about often is a lot of our players have dogs that have been trained to catch discs directly at their face. And so sometimes you'll go to an event and you'll see, like, Road Rash is a great example of that. She Every time I think about this topic, I think about Ashley's Road Rash, Ashley and Ken's Road Rash. That dog can catch bullets at her face like they're nothing, and she'll pop in the air and land exactly in the zone. Let me tell you, people, that's not normal. Don't count on your
Right.
dog. Don't count on your dog to do that.
There are outlier situations. Yeah.
I have 0 dogs in my house that will catch like that. 0. And they're high level frisbee dogs. Like I teach, moving to the space of interception. And so they're not used to getting now. That doesn't say you couldn't train it. So if you want to be able to blast a disc at your dog's face and then catch it in zone play, you have to train that. So put the dog on a sit, back up 5 feet, throw him a disc. Back up 10 feet, throw him a disc. Back up to 15 feet, throw him a disc. Back up to 20 feet, throw him a disc. Do that drill. Then you'll have a dog where you can throw something right at their face. They'll hold position. But unless you're training that, like, your dog doesn't do that. I have never had a dog that does that out of the gate without teaching them to do it. And at the moment, because I don't focus on zone play games, I'm focused mostly on freestyle. None of my dogs will catch that. So I do think that that is a level up in updog strategy, teaching that skill, so that if you need a dog to stay in the position, I would train a cue like there. That's what my position cue is there. Anytime I'm moving my dog and I want them to stop wherever they are, That's my cue for that. So you can always just have a there cue, something like that, where the dog just stays right where they are in a position and you can hit them with the disc. And that would be a level up in your gameplay if you're doing a lot of zone gameplay. But in general, that's not a skill that dogs have.
Yeah. And I know you were just kind of like, I know you didn't really mean it this way, but like also when you're throwing at your dog directly to your dog, don't like bean it at them. Like,
Yeah.
because
Some people do. If you're throwing 20 yards, listen, we're talking some of
and
these people are
Anheuser,
like they can barely throw 20 yards. So we can't ask everybody to throw 20 yards softly directly to their dog's face. They don't have that level of skill yet. So if we can at least prepare the dog to see that kind of disc and to have some foundation on how to receive that type of disc safely so that they're not deterred from catching. Obviously, we don't want to pelt something at our dog's face, but sometimes
right.
when you're in the middle of gameplay and you're throwing 20 yards and you're just trying to get far enough to get to the sweet spot, you don't have the option to think about how hard you're throwing it. You're just trying to get the disc in the square and it's still in the air and it's catchable.
You know, I've seen, those hyper pet material discs.
Yeah.
I see a few players do that with those, and you
Yeah.
can whip those things because they're not going to hurt
All
a
they have to do is open their
hamstring.
mouth and it'll just like
Right, it just crushes in their mouth. Yeah, um, that's an excellent disc if you're
Yeah.
going to use that strategy, man.
Yep.
Of course, you
Yeah.
can only throw it probably 30
I
yards.
wouldn't want to have to throw it on the rest of the scenarios either. I
Right.
wouldn't want to have to do that either. Yeah. So I mean, I think there's it starts as a very simple conversation about just the fate of the disc and how it's easy for the dog to catch, but it really does go up to a pretty high level of handling and how you're releasing, the force in which you're doing the disc, the space in which you're doing it, the angle in which you're releasing the disc, the height in which you're releasing the disc, the timing in which you're releasing the disc, whether the dog can see you or not when you're releasing the disc. I mean, these are all layers to add to your gameplay that will all increase your success and your efficiency going around the field. And if you look at the top teams that are playing these games, these are all skills that their dogs have. They can either stay into a zone and take a direct disc, or they can read a disc coming into a zone and hold position. They're not blasting around everywhere. They have patterns where the dog can run the pattern in flow. So maybe, if you're a lefty, I would love to see any lefty players posting videos of their games to the page. I think that would be a huge contribution for the 10% of us out there that don't get the opportunity to see a lot of lefty gameplay. Even if it's not a great round, it doesn't have to be a great round. Like just post some of your rounds on the discussion page. Maybe we can start a thread so that everybody will be under the same thread. So maybe after this episode, we'll post a thread for that, or maybe we could do it in the as the podcast episode, maybe the podcast announcement episode. But I would love to see players putting lefty videos of gameplay, not freestyle, not far out. We don't need anything else. We need zone play, and that way people can see different strategies.
So I think like this is just my comment as a right-handed person, so you can tell me if I'm accurate or not, Dre. But like just talking this out, I really think I'm not here to say that any particular game does or doesn't have an advantage for right or left-handed folks, but I think the biggest disadvantage is what you just were kind of commenting on is the majority of players that you observe are right-handed. So the majority of examples that we see of strategies and ways to cope with things and try different things is right-handed.
Yep.
So we kind of talked about some things earlier on where it's just flipping the script, right? And getting that Anheuser to act like a right-handed thrower or doing the opposite. So if
Right.
you see a right-handed thrower doing something on one side of the field, thinking, well, what would that look like on the opposite side of the field?
Yep.
Um, so I love the idea of the thread and getting some more examples from lefties out there.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that'll be really helpful. And and as you're saying all that, I immediately feel bad that I'm a lefty, so I could do that also.
Do we
So
know any lefties?
I don't know if I know any lefties. I am going to be on the road a lot, so I don't know. I don't know how much field play updog games because I'm going to miss our weekly one this week too because I'm traveling again. So I won't be able to play any of the games this weekend. But I will, if I get around anywhere to an Updog event soon, or if we're at the seminar this weekend and there's an opportunity to play a little Updog, I'll see if we can get some videos. But for anybody out there that's throwing Lefty and you're playing gameplay, just snag a video of the different games that you might have and post it. It'll be a contribution just for people to be able to see different field layouts, how different throws impact the zones, different patterns that maybe, people didn't think about, or even just seeing the reverse pattern happening from Lefty for people that are visual learners. Like you can explain it all day long, but unless they can see an example of it, they might have a really hard time transferring that into their own play. So hopefully we can get a thread started for you guys, and hopefully this was English for you. Like for Jack and I, we can have pretty high level conversation about disc work, and so I hope that that you gained something from it, an understanding about how discs fly and how dogs respond to how the discs are flying, so that you can get a little bit more consistent data. Because it's not even about results, really, right? The results are the points that you get are gonna come based on the understanding of disc mechanics and dog athletic mechanics that make them jump a certain way or don't make them jump a certain way. And so the disc angle and placement and speed and height all has a role in how your dog is going to move. Other than those dogs we mentioned in the very beginning that are very ground bound, you guys are fine. Like you're not going to have any of these problems. As long as your disc is floating over that zone somewhere and your dog catches well, which most ground bound dogs are better catchers in general, then you're not going to need any of this stuff necessarily other than Lefty strategy approach. But for the dogs that jump, it's a whole nother level of fun, but challenge in regards to trying to get them to land in the zone. So another thing we didn't talk about that I'll just bring up real quick that made me think about is that sometimes for jumping dogs, you have to throw in front of the zone for them to land in it. So we did talk about preventing them jumping out of the zone. So in this example right here, we were talking about setting the disc with hyzer so that it forces the dog back, and then the dog just jumps right here instead of doing a big leaping jump because the disc is forging. But what happens if it goes the other way and we want the dog to jump into the zone instead of preventing them jumping out of the zone? So now we have, let's say we want the dog to catch in this zone, and we're going to put the disc. If the dog is, let's say the dog is coming, let's say the orange one is the dog and they're coming across the field and we want them to land in this zone, I'd put my disc there. So I want the dog to jump, catch, and land here. If I put my disc here, that's when I'm getting in trouble, that the dog may jump out of the zone either way. So try to think about it as like thinking about the space the dog's moving into instead of where you're throwing the disc. Because sometimes where you throw the disc that's not where the dog's ending. With these jumping dogs, that's not where they're stopping. That's where they're starting their jump. So you have to think about how far they carry. I mean, I can't even tell you how many dogs I know that carry at least 5-10 yards every single time. Every single time they catch toss and fetch, you got to throw to 35 yards for the 42. So you want to throw before the zone so the dog that leaps can catch, fly, and land in the zone. So there's both end of that. You don't want them to fly out of the zone, so we use pressure for the disc, but we also want them to choose to powerfully jump into the zone. So you don't have to compress them for that. You could throw that nice flat floating disc or the S shot or anything else, and if it's in that perfect spot, the dog can use all their full power, momentum, leap early, and then land in the zone. So that's just another kind of avenue to think about.
And all of that, as you're describing it too, like I'm thinking of, I'm picturing dogs that I know who do those things. Yeah. And it's another reminder, just I'm throwing it out there again. It's helpful to your club when you side judge, but it's super helpful to you. Because like I know when I'm judging, now the people that are in my local club are gonna be like, that's what you think about when you're judging? But like when I'm sitting there watching, especially a game like this, like Fireball or Greedy or Spaced Out or something like that, as soon as the throw happens, in my head, I'm like, that dog's not catching that disc. Yep. Or that dog's going to catch it. That's a good throw, perfectly lined up. The dog's going to catch it. But like that's going through my head. And if you watch, I mean, it doesn't take long. You spend a day side judging. You just watch 60 rounds, like 20 rounds of Spaced Out, 20 rounds, whatever. You get that mental imagery over and over, and you start to really realize and think to yourself, okay, I can tell when these throws are not going to be catches, or if they are, it was a lucky catch, right? Or a really talented dog that made a move on a badly thrown disc or something. So do that. Side judge, volunteer to side judge. It helps out your club, but it'll help you visualize some of the stuff that we're talking about and the angles that take place and
Yep.
how to like adjust for things and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean that's across the board. I mean, you know me, I gotta bring up freestyle in every podcast, but that's the thing for freestyle too. Judging makes all the difference. You
Yeah.
can't see everything that you need to see. All of our games, every single one of our games, you'll learn so much more than playing by judging. So even if it's just for 10, 15, 20 minutes, helping out and potty breaks for the judges or lunch breaks or whatever for the judges, as much as you can, get judging experience in every single game that you can, and it will level you up in every single game. If nothing else, you'll have more examples of somebody doing something well or somebody doing something that you want to avoid doing. So it'll be great data, any way that you look at it. Even if it's a brand new club and nobody has any throwing skill, you're still going to learn something from that experience of judging. So definitely what Jack said, go out and side judge and help out and participate in your freestyle judging and just, you know, soak up as much information as you can.
We hope that you're out there practicing these strategies on the field, trying out some Anheuser, trying out some High-Heiser, thinking about where your dog's jumping and landing. We want to see you guys being successful in the games. And in the meantime,
be kind to each other.
Be kind to your animals.
What was it?
Be kind to Earth.
Kind to Earth.
And be kind to your judges.
And be kind to your judges and Earth and each other and your dogs and your animals. Peace.
We will see you next time on The Sweet Spot. Hello.